You're nothing but dead weight in your own house." Jenna's piercing words cut through the air like a dagger, striking at the core of my being. My heart pounded as I watched her face contort with rage, spewing vitriol at my husband, Ron, and me. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner, but the tension had been building for weeks. Jenna, my son Derek's wife, had grown increasingly hostile and dismissive towards us. She had always been a bit of a firecracker, but her behavior had taken a drastic turn for the worse. "Why should we have to put up with this?" she continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "You two are a burden, and it's time you realized it." Ron reached out to her, his gentle demeanor a stark contrast to her fury. "Jenna, please, let's not escalate this any further." But it was too late. The veil had been lifted, revealing the true nature of our once-beloved daughter-in-law. "Don't you dare try to placate me, old man." She spat. "You and your pathetic wife have worn out your welcome in this house." Derek, my son, sat in stunned silence, unable or unwilling to intervene. It was as if he didn't recognize the woman he had married. I couldn't take it anymore. "How dare you speak to us like that?" I said, my voice trembling with rage and disbelief. "We are your family, and we have given everything to support you and Derek." Jenna let out a derisive laugh. "Support? You call leeching off our finances and invading our privacy support? You're delusional." Her words stung like a slap in the face. Ron and I had always been hard-working, contributing significantly to the household expenses and taking care of the chores. But Jenna's manipulation had twisted the truth, making us seem like a burden rather than the loving family we had always been. I looked to Derek, hoping he would step in and defend us, but he remained silent, his head hanging low. Jenna sneered at us. "It's time for you to pack your bags and get out. This is our home, and we don't need you here anymore." As she stormed out of the room, leaving a trail of anger and confusion in her wake, I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the sweet, responsible young woman we had once welcomed into our family. It was as if a dark veil had been lifted, exposing the true Jenna, cold, manipulative, and utterly devoid of compassion. Ron and I sat in stunned silence, our hearts heavy with the realization that the happy family we had cherished was nothing more than an illusion. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but one thing was certain: we would not allow Jenna's tyranny to continue unchallenged. The next few days were tense, to say the least. Jenna's outburst had created an unbearable atmosphere in our home. Ron and I treaded carefully, trying to avoid further confrontation, but it was clear that the damage had been done. Jenna's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would go from periods of sullen silence to outbursts of rage, lashing out at us for the smallest perceived offenses. "What's the matter with you, Jenna?" Derek asked one evening, his voice strained. "You've been acting so strange lately." Jenna shot him a withering glare. "Don't pretend you don't know what's going on, Derek. Your parents are the problem, not me." "But they've done nothing wrong," Derek protested. "They're just trying to help us out." "Help?" Jenna let out a harsh laugh. "They're nothing but a burden, and you're too blind to see it." Derek shook his head, his frustration evident. "I don't understand what's gotten into you. This isn't like you at all." "You're right, Derek," Jenna said, her voice dripping with contempt. "This isn't the me you thought you knew. That was just an act, and now the real me is coming out." Ron and I exchanged a worried glance. Jenna's words sent a chill down my spine. Had our entire relationship with her been a lie? The tension continued to escalate in the following days, with Jenna becoming increasingly hostile and volatile. She would deliberately ignore us or make cutting remarks, shattering the illusion of the perfect family we had once believed in. It all came to a head at a family dinner, where Jenna's behavior reached a new low. As we sat around the table, she began to berate us, her words laced with venom. "You two are nothing but leeches, sucking the life out of our family." She spat. "You're a constant drain on our resources and our happiness." "Jenna, please," Ron pleaded, his voice shaking. "We've always contributed our fair share. Why are you treating us like this?" "Because you deserve it," Jenna snarled. "You're both pathetic and weak, clinging to your son and his wife for support. It's time you learned your place." I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. This was the woman who had once professed her love and admiration for us, who had promised to be a loyal and devoted family member. But now, her true colors were on display, and they were darker than we could have ever imagined. Derek tried to intervene, but Jenna shut him down with a withering glare. "Don't you dare defend them, Derek. They're not worth it." As Jenna stormed out of the room, leaving us in a state of shock and disbelief, I realized that our family was in crisis. We had been blind to Jenna's true nature, and now we were paying the price. But I was determined not to let her manipulate and control us any longer. It was time to take action and reclaim our dignity. In the aftermath of Jenna's outburst, Derek seemed to be questioning everything he thought he knew about his wife. He confided in me that he was struggling to reconcile the woman he had married with the one who had been tormenting us. "Mom, I just don't understand what's going on with her," he said, his voice heavy with confusion and pain. "It's like she's a completely different person." I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I know, honey. Her behavior has been shocking, to say the least." "I need to get to the bottom of this," Derek said, a newfound determination in his eyes. "There has to be an explanation for why she's acting this way." I nodded, hoping that he would find the answers he was seeking. I had long since given up trying to make sense of Jenna's actions. A few days later, Derek approached me with a grim expression on his face. "Mom, I hired a private investigator to look into Jenna's past," he said. "What they uncovered is disturbing." My heart sank as he began to reveal the details of Jenna's history. It seemed that her manipulative behavior was nothing new. She had a pattern of latching onto wealthy families and exploiting them for her own gain. "She's been involved in multiple scams and fraud cases," Derek said, his voice shaking. "She's even been married before, to a wealthy businessman who she cleaned out before leaving him penniless." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But how could she have hidden all of this?" I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. "She's a master manipulator," Derek replied. "She presents herself as a perfect devoted partner, but it's all an act. She's been playing me this whole time." As the full scope of Jenna's deceit became clear, Derek's face crumpled with anguish. "I can't believe I let her do this to us," he said, burying his head in his hands. "I should have seen it coming." "This isn't your fault, Derek," I said, trying to comfort him. "She fooled us all with her lies." But even as I tried to reassure him, I could see the conflict written on his face. He had invested so much in his relationship with Jenna, and the revelation of her true nature had shaken him to his core. "What am I going to do, Mom?" he asked, his eyes pleading with me for guidance. "I can't stay with her after everything she's done, but it's still so hard to let go." I took a deep breath, knowing that I had to be strong for him. "You need to make a choice," I said, my voice firm. "Jenna has shown her true colors, and she's not going to change. If you stay with her, she'll continue to manipulate and exploit you, just like she's done to so many others." Derek nodded, his jaw set in determination. "You're right," he said. "I can't let her continue to hurt us like this. It's time to take a stand." As he left the room, I could see the resolve in his eyes. Jenna's web of lies was finally unraveling, and we were going to make her pay for the pain she had caused our family. The road ahead would be difficult, but we were united in our mission to seek justice and reclaim our dignity. In the weeks that followed, the tension in our household reached a boiling point. Jenna's hostility seemed to escalate with every passing day, as if she were determined to make our lives a living hell. It all came to a head when I suffered a minor injury while doing yard work. Nothing too serious, but it left me with a sprained ankle and limited mobility. Jenna, of course, saw this as an opportunity to further torment us. "You know, with your injury, it might be better if you and Ron moved in with us for a while," she said, a sickly sweet smile plastered on her face. "We wouldn't want you to struggle with the stairs and getting around the house." I narrowed my eyes, sensing the ulterior motive behind her offer. "That's very kind of you, Jenna, but we'll manage just fine." "Nonsense," she insisted, her voice dripping with false concern. "It's the least we can do to help out our family." Derek, sensing my hesitation, stepped in. "Mom, Jenna's right. It might be better if you and Dad stay with us for a bit until you're back on your feet." I glanced at Ron, who shrugged helplessly. We both knew that fighting Jenna's suggestion would only lead to more conflict. "Fine," I conceded, trying to hide my reluctance. "If you insist." Jenna's smile widened, but there was a gleam in her eye that sent a chill down my spine. Excellent. We'll get the guest room ready right away. As we settled into our temporary living arrangement, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna had ulterior motives. Sure enough, it didn't take long for her true intentions to become clear. She began to shirk all household responsibilities, leaving the cleaning, cooking, and laundry to Ron and me. Whenever we tried to protest, she would simply wave us off with a dismissive, "You're the one staying here. The least you can do is help out." Derek, caught in the middle, seemed torn between defending us and trying to keep the peace with his wife. "Jenna, this isn't right," he would say, but she would brush him off with a flippant remark. "Don't be so dramatic, Derek. They're just doing their fair share." As the weeks wore on, Jenna's behavior became increasingly erratic and controlling. She would deliberately isolate us from Derek, making sure we were never alone with him for long. It was as if she were afraid we would turn him against her. "She's trying to drive a wedge between us," I confided in Ron one night as we lay in bed, exhausted from the day's emotional turmoil. Ron nodded warily. "I know. She's determined to break our family apart." As the tension continued to mount, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Jenna's manipulative tactics were pushing us to the breaking point, and I feared that soon something would have to give. Little did I know that the worst was yet to come. Jenna's harassment seemed to know no bounds. As the days wore on, her tactics became increasingly brazen and cruel. "Why are you two still here?" She would sneer whenever Ron and I entered a room. "Aren't you overstaying your welcome?" Derek, to his credit, tried to intervene. "Jenna, that's enough. They're my parents, and they have every right to be here." But Jenna would simply laugh in his face. "Oh, Derek, always the dutiful son. When are you going to realize that they're using you?" Ron and I would exchange helpless glances, our hearts breaking as we watched our son caught in the crossfire. Jenna's behavior grew increasingly erratic and unpredictable. She would go from periods of cold silence to outbursts of rage, lashing out at us for the smallest perceived offenses. "What's the matter with you?" Derek would plead, his eyes filled with anguish. "Why are you treating them like this?" "Because they deserve it," Jenna would shout, her face contorted with fury. "They're nothing but leeches, draining the life out of our family." I couldn't believe the venom spewing from her lips. This was supposed to be the woman who had promised to love and cherish our family, but now she seemed hell-bent on destroying us. The breaking point came one evening as we sat down for dinner. Jenna, as usual, had shirked all responsibility for preparing the meal, leaving it to Ron and me to cook and serve. As we all sat down at the table, Jenna looked around with a sneer. "What's this? You two couldn't even be bothered to set the table properly?" I bristled at her accusation. "We did our best, Jenna. If you have a problem with it, maybe you should have helped out." Jenna's eyes flashed with rage. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home?" she snarled. "You ungrateful old hag." Before I could respond, Jenna slammed her hands on the table, causing the dishes to rattle. "That's it. I've had enough of you two dragging us down. It's time for you to pack your bags and get out." Derek jumped to his feet, his face flushed with anger. "Jenna, stop this. They're not going anywhere." But Jenna ignored him, her eyes boring into me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "You have 24 hours to gather your things and leave," she said, her voice low and menacing. "If you're not out by then, I'll have the police remove you." Tears stung my eyes as I watched Derek wrestle with his emotions, torn between defending us and trying to reason with his wife. As Jenna stormed out of the room, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake, I knew that the time for passivity was over. We had tried to reason with her, to appeal to her better nature, but all our efforts had been in vain. Ron and I exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between us. We had endured enough. It was time to take a stand and reclaim our dignity. "Pack your bags," I said to Ron, my voice steely with determination. "We're leaving this house, and we're not going quietly." From that moment on, there was no turning back. We were going to fight fire with fire, and Jenna was about to face the consequences of her actions. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of anger and determination. Ron and I wasted no time in packing our belongings, our hands trembling with a mix of rage and sorrow. "I can't believe she's doing this to us," Ron said, his voice thick with emotion as he folded his clothes into a suitcase. "After everything we've done for her." I shook my head, my jaw clenched. "She's shown her true colors, Ron. We can't let her continue to walk all over us like this." As we packed, we could hear the sound of raised voices coming from the living room. Derek and Jenna were engaged in a heated argument, their words punctuated by the occasional crash of something being thrown or knocked over. "Can't believe you're kicking them out." Derek's voice rang out, laced with disbelief and anger. "They're your family too, Jenna." "They're dead weight, Derek," Jenna shouted back. "They've been holding us back for far too long. It's time we cut them loose." I winced at her words, my heart aching for my son. He was caught in the middle of a war he never asked for, torn between his loyalty to his wife and his love for his parents. As we finished packing our last few belongings, Derek appeared in the doorway, his face pale and drawn. "Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice heavy with anguish. "I tried to talk her out of this, but she won't listen to reason." I pulled him into a tight embrace, fighting back tears. "It's not your fault, honey. Jenna's made her choice, and we have to respect that." Derek shook his head, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know who she is anymore," he said, his voice breaking. "The woman I married has become a stranger to me." As we headed towards the front door, our bags in hand, Jenna appeared, a triumphant sneer plastered on her face. "Well, look who's finally leaving," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "It's about time you two learned your place." I bristled at her words, my anger rising like a tidal wave. "You're a twisted, manipulative woman, Jenna," I spat, "and you're going to regret the day you turned on this family." Jenna simply laughed, unfazed by my words. "Empty threats, as always. You two have no power here. This is my house, and I decide who stays and who goes." As she spoke, I caught a glimpse of Derek standing behind her, his face twisted into a mask of anguish and conflict. It was as if he were watching the slow destruction of everything he had believed in, powerless to stop it. With one final glare at Jenna, Ron and I turned and walked out the door, our heads held high. We had been forced out of our own home, but we refused to let her see our pain. As we loaded our bags into the car and prepared to drive away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of finality wash over me. Our ties to Jenna had been severed, perhaps for good. But in that moment, I knew that we had made the right choice. We had reclaimed our dignity and refused to be victimized any longer. As we pulled away from the house, leaving our old life behind, I glanced in the rearview mirror and caught a glimpse of Derek standing in the doorway, his shoulders slumped in defeat. It was a painful sight, but it only strengthened my resolve. We were free of Jenna's tyranny, and now it was time to focus on the next chapter of our lives. The road ahead would be difficult, but we were determined to make her pay for the pain she had inflicted on our family. The days following our departure from the house were filled with a tense silence. Ron and I had found temporary refuge in a modest apartment, but the weight of what had happened hung heavy in the air. Derek had remained distant, no doubt struggling to come to terms with the fracturing of his marriage. I longed to reach out to him, to offer comfort and support, but I knew he needed time to process everything on his own terms. It wasn't until a week later that he finally came to see us, his face etched with anguish and determination. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk," he said as we ushered him into the small living room. "Of course, honey," I replied, my heart aching at the sight of his pain. "What's on your mind?" Derek took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what he was about to say. "I've made a decision," he said, his voice steady. "I'm leaving Jenna." Ron and I exchanged a glance, equal parts surprised and relieved. "Are you sure about this, son?" Ron asked, placing a comforting hand on Derek's shoulder. Derek nodded, his jaw set. "It's the only choice I have left. Her behavior has become too much to bear, and I can't continue living with someone who treats my family with such cruelty and disrespect." As he spoke, the full weight of his decision seemed to hit him, and his eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I thought I knew her," he said, his voice breaking. "But the woman I married is gone, replaced by someone cold and heartless." I pulled him into a tight embrace, fighting back my own emotions. "I'm so sorry, Derek," I said, my voice thick with sorrow. "No one should have to go through what you're experiencing." Derek pulled back, his face hardening with resolve. It's not just her treatment of you and Dad, he continued. She's been unfaithful, and I've found evidence of her involvement in financial fraud and other illegal activities. I couldn't help but gasp at the revelation. Jenna's been cheating and breaking the law? I asked, my heart sinking. Derek nodded grimly. It seems her manipulative behavior has been a pattern throughout her life. She's been using me, just like she used her previous husband before me. As the full scope of Jenna's deception became clear, a wave of anger washed over me. She had not only tormented our family, but had also betrayed Derek's trust in the worst possible way. That's it, I said, my voice steely with determination. She's gone too far this time. We can't let her get away with this. Derek looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You're right, Mom. It's time we fought back and held her accountable for her actions. As we sat together, discussing our next steps and strategizing our approach, I could sense a shift in the air. Derek had finally awakened to the truth about Jenna, and he was no longer willing to be a passive victim in her web of lies and deceit. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with legal battles and emotional turmoil. But we were united in our resolve to seek justice and reclaim our dignity. Jenna's reign of terror over our family was coming to an end, and she was about to face the consequences of her actions. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity as we prepared to confront Jenna and reclaim our belongings from the house. Derek had enlisted the help of his uncle, a former law enforcement officer, to accompany us and ensure a peaceful resolution. As we pulled up to the familiar driveway, a knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. This was it, the final showdown with the woman who had wreaked so much havoc on our family. Remember, stay calm and don't engage with her unless absolutely necessary, Derek's Uncle Tom instructed us. We're just here to retrieve your belongings and leave. Any confrontation should be avoided. Ron and I nodded, our jaws set with determination. We had come too far to let Jenna's mind games derail us now. As we approached the front door, it swung open and Jenna appeared, her face contorted into a sneer. Well, if it isn't the prodigal family returning, she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. Derek stepped forward, his shoulders squared. We're not here to cause trouble, Jenna, he said, his voice steady. We've come to collect our belongings and leave, that's all. Jenna's eyes narrowed as she took in the presence of Tom. Who's this, then? Your muscle to try and intimidate me? She let out a harsh laugh. Don't bother. You're not scaring anyone. Tom remained impassive, his years of training evident in his calm demeanor. Ma'am, we're not here to cause any problems. We just want to retrieve the belongings and be on our way. Jenna's eyes flashed with rage as she turned to Derek. You really think you can just waltz back in here and take whatever you want? She snarled. This is my house, and you have no right to anything in it. Derek held up a hand, his face hardening. That's enough, Jenna. You know full well that many of those belongings are my parents' property. We're not leaving until we get them back. For a moment, it seemed like Jenna might escalate the situation further, her body tensed like a coiled spring. But as she took in the determined expressions on our faces and the presence of Tom, her resolve seemed to falter. Fine, she spat, stepping aside. Take your trash and get out of my sight. As we entered the house and began retrieving our belongings, Jenna paced around us like a caged animal, her eyes burning with hatred. You think you've won, don't you? She sneered, her voice trembling with anger. Well, this isn't over. You'll pay for this, all of you. Derek paused in his task, turning to face her. Enough, Jenna. We're not here to fight with you. Just let us take our things and leave in peace. Jenna's face twisted into an ugly sneer. Peace? You want peace after everything you've done to me? She let out a bitter laugh. You're all pathetic. You'll regret this, mark my words. As we loaded the last of our belongings into the car, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. The battle was won, and Jenna's reign of terror had finally come to an end. As we drove away, leaving Jenna's angry shouts behind us, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her standing on the porch, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. In that moment, she looked small and powerless, her threats ringing hollow. We had reclaimed our dignity and refused to be bullied any longer. Jenna's downfall was complete, and she was left alone to face the consequences of her actions. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with legal battles and the emotional turmoil of Derek's divorce. But we were united in our resolve to seek justice and rebuild our lives, free from the tyranny that had once threatened to destroy us. As we drove into the sunset, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and determination. We had faced adversity head-on and emerged victorious, and now it was time to move forward, stronger and more resilient than ever before.
Now residing with my parents, the realization hit me hard. My marriage, once believed to bring happiness, had only been a facade. My husband, whom I trusted, turned out to be using me, and I felt betrayed by my in-laws. The mother and son duo, oblivious to their own naivety, seemed oblivious to the practicalities of life. Faced with the threat of being kicked out, I questioned the essence of being a family with such people. The decision was clear. I needed to take charge. Swiftly reaching out to everyone, I initiated preparations for the next chapter of my life. As for the household items, I arranged for a service to pick them up. The following day, furniture and appliances were taken away, prompting a panicked response from my husband. I am Michelle Thompson, a 35-year-old woman who has been working from home since college. Despite a monthly commute, I am a full-time employee, thanks to the accommodating nature of my company. A motorcycle accident during my college years left my legs disabled, confining me to a wheelchair. Despite ongoing rehabilitation efforts, the prospect of improvement remained bleak. Embracing my condition, I had initially resigned to the idea of lifelong singleness. However, a blind date arranged by friends reintroduced the desire for companionship. I met Ken, my now husband, who, despite being 5 years my senior, exuded youthful energy. His straightforward demeanor, though bordering on rudeness, intrigued me. Ken's genuine curiosity about my life in a wheelchair set him apart, and I appreciated his unfiltered interest. Despite societal norms, his bold inquiries made me feel seen and understood. As we continued dating, I convinced myself that happiness awaited me with Ken. Blinded by the prospect of a lasting connection, I eagerly accepted his proposal after just 6 months of dating. Immediately after our marriage, things took an unexpected turn. Ken and I decided to move into my standalone house, which, despite being a rental, was relatively pricey but exceptionally wheelchair-friendly. It seemed the previous tenant had made the place more accessible, and Ken appreciated the spaciousness. Since I spent a lot of time at home, I naturally took on most of the housework. Occasionally, when I asked Ken for help, he would dismissively claim exhaustion, refusing to lift a finger or assist me in the bath. Despite managing on my own, bathing took longer, and I reminisced about the days when a caregiver visited twice a week to help. Frustrations mounted as Ken neglected to put away bath items, making the process even more time-consuming. Pleas for understanding fell on deaf ears, as Ken failed to recognize the house's design catered to my needs. It became evident that Ken's initial attraction had been to the house, appliances, and my ability to handle chores despite my disability. His unemployment and nightly partying further strained our relationship. While the realization was heart-wrenching, I clung to the notion that our marriage must have some love to it. Financial issues crept in, with Ken increasingly relying on me for money. Seeking advice from his mother only brought biased support, leaving me feeling lost without any family to turn to. Friends dismissed my concerns, emphasizing Ken's facade. Ken's unpredictable behavior, fueled by alcohol, pushed me to my limits. I grappled with the dilemma of enduring the situation or facing a solitary future. Just as the idea of divorce started to gain prominence, Ken unexpectedly proposed living with his parents. Stunned, I learned he intended for them to move into our place. While I understood the desire to be near aging parents, their good health made the proposition perplexing. I couldn't comprehend why Ken's parents were considering moving from their own home to ours. Did they genuinely need to stay here? With 4 people in the house, it would be cramped, and given that I work from home, it would be quite inconvenient. "You're always thinking about yourself, huh? I never thought you were this selfish," Ken accused. I'm just questioning why they need to move here when they have their own place. Our home is more spacious, modern, and equipped with all the conveniences. Besides, it's designed to be accessible for elders. If Ken's parents move in, I'd have to be on my toes during work hours. While Ken is rarely home, his retired parents would likely be around a lot. Sharing the bathroom and kitchen? I'm slower than most people, and I can foresee the challenges of such a living situation. Can I have some time to think? You better hurry up. We don't have much time, Ken retorted. Despite his claim of limited time, Ken wasted no time. By the weekend, he brought his parents over, making me suspect they had been planning this move for a while. You know, I've been thinking. Maybe you should consider a facility, Ken's mother suggested. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A facility for me? Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You have your own limits. In a facility, they take care of everything. It became apparent that Ken wasn't just contemplating his parents moving in. He was also considering sending me away. I'd visit you from time to time. That statement jolted me awake. If not now, then when, Ken? What am I to you? Your wife, right? Would you really tell your beloved wife to go to a facility? Hold on. When did I say I love you, Michelle? Ken's words flushed my face with anger. This guy, Ken, was using me. Wasn't it my fault for letting it get to this point? I thought I had to draw a line. Then, even more shocking words came out of Ken's mouth. In this house, I'm going to live with my parents. You, an outsider, can go live in some cheap facility. What'd you just say? I looked to his parents, hoping for support, but they just had eerie grins on their faces. Why are you laughing? What's the big deal, huh? Were they targeting my home even before our marriage? Things have been escalating too fast lately. I need to evict these people. Please leave. What, leave now? How can you talk to my parents like that? I felt like I saw the real Ken. He was yelling at me with such fury. If he cares so much for his parents, why doesn't he earn his own money and build them a house? Why does he have to take mine? My head felt like it was on fire. It's okay, Ken. Michelle must have been shocked since we came unexpectedly, his mother said. We just came to check the place today. Yeah, we need to check before moving in. Looks like there are more appliances than last time. Seems comfy to live in. They were genuinely here to take over my home. In an attempt to steady my nerves, I took a deep breath, inhaling oxygen. A sudden question lingered in my mind. If I leave, how are they planning to sustain themselves? His parents rely on a pension, and Ken is just a part-timer. I'm covering all the rent and living expenses. Who's going to handle the $2,800 monthly payment? Do his parents assume Ken is covering the living expenses? Disregarding my concerns, his parents cheerfully departed, with Ken following suit. I'm going to stay at my parents' tonight. Hold on, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. I, the man of the house, have decided. I won't change my mind. Left alone in shock, I couldn't linger in that state. I promptly contacted a real estate agent I knew. When Ken returned the next day, he saw the organized belongings and chuckled. Oh, started packing. Found a place to move to already? Yes, I have. Ken appeared genuinely surprised by my swift response. And here's the card of a divorce lawyer. Here you go, Ken. From now on, let's communicate through the lawyer. A divorce? Why? If you're kicking me out, there's no point in being married anymore, right? Ken looked as if he had been hit by a ton of bricks. He hadn't anticipated my swift mention of divorce. You can't live without me, right? I don't understand what you mean. Who else would marry you? I can live on my own, but you said you wanted to get married. It was at this moment that I realized how arrogant and overconfident Ken had been. He approached me assuming I was a lonely, disabled single woman. I'm independent, have money, and never struggle with my living. Plus, I stay home all the time, so I handle all the chores for him. I'm the ideal woman. Money keeps coming in even if he doesn't work. He thought I wouldn't leave because I couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was shocked when I casually brought up divorce. Why? If you divorce me, you might be single for the rest of your life. Well, if it means living a married life with you, I'd rather be single forever. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't for you to decide. The typically submissive me was now fighting back, and he was getting flustered. I could tell that Ken was panicking. I never thought he was such a weak man. I don't know why I had been putting up with him for so long. Once I decided on the divorce, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I guess I had been too focused on getting married. Anyway, you don't have to move out right away. I didn't mean to rush you into a facility that soon. Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry. You won't find a place that fast. Think it over, okay? I've already secured a place, so it's all right. What? Wait a minute. Isn't this too soon? Observing Ken's shifting attitudes, from smugness to panic, only heightened my irritation. Calmly, I explained, the facility staff are informed and know about my situation, so everything's fine. Wait, when did you even set all this up? Were you preparing all along? Ken questioned. Yes, even before I met you. In fact, I had been considering my retirement and had an eye on a particular facility, more like a condo. After an injury during my hospital stay, I delved into various investment books, diversifying my investments between my salary and my parents' inheritance. The facility I had my eye on, I had already purchased and had been renting it out for income. I never mentioned this to Ken. It's my hidden asset. We don't need to get a divorce. I get it. You can stay here. Let's live with my parents. Do you not get it? Why would I ever do that? He seemed pretty dense. Even after bringing up divorce, he still believed he was the only one for me. Sorry, but my mind's made up. What's your problem? You're so selfish. If you come crying back later, it's not my problem. I won't be, so don't worry. Ken fell silent, deep in thought, for what seemed like hours. During that time, I started packing up my things. Then I heard Ken making a phone call, likely talking to his parents. It seemed pathetic, relying on them for such decisions. Eventually, Ken approached me. Fine, we'll get a divorce. Just leave quickly. Ken said begrudgingly, perhaps realizing he might miss having me around like a housemaid. But he probably thought that living with his parents would save him from household chores. He has a house, and it's fully furnished. No issues for daily life, at least for now. With that thought, he headed back to his parents' home. I'm going to talk to my folks about what's next. Get ready to move out quickly. Yes, I'll do that. I finished moving all my stuff within a week, and during that time, Ken never showed up. We met again a day after the move was done, as I was trying to start my new life in my new house. Ken called me outside and said, Hey, what's going on? This place is almost empty. Where are the appliances? I had a service pick up those items for me. I called the service the next day and had them collect all the furniture and appliances. My husband became agitated and started grumbling. Not only Ken, but also his parents were there. All the appliances here were bought by me. They are all from when I was single. The only thing that's yours is right there. There were only 3 cardboard boxes. I did leave the clear clothing container we bought after marriage. Michelle, we can't live with this. We need to split the property if we're divorcing. That's right. We can't live here like this. What are you talking about? Nobody can live here. What do you mean? The rent's $2,000? Ken and his parents were stunned. I told Ken when we got married, this isn't your own house. No, it isn't. I got a bit of a discount on the rent because I asked a real estate agent I know. If I move out, the rent will go up even more, given that this is a property with disability access, and I've already received several inquiries from people with the same concerns. I recommended that they move out. Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are we going to do now? Ken's mother was notably agitated. I don't know. I did tell Ken. I didn't hear about it. I'll sue you. Ken threatened. I saw that coming. Honestly, from an outsider's perspective, it might look like I selfishly got a divorce, broke the lease, and took all the furniture and appliances. But I was sure you can sue. But do you even have the money for it? Ken's face twisted. He couldn't afford a lawyer, even if by some miracle he could. I have an ace up my sleeve. I showed them some pictures. When did you take these? The pictures showed Ken gambling and womanizing. I spent my money on this. I'm ready to use these in court, Ken. What the hell? I thought everything was going well. His parents were particularly agitated. What's going on? Then suddenly, Ken started to apologize. I'm sorry. Please come back. I need you, Michelle. You're the one who kicked me out. We're already divorced. So what are you talking about? Besides, you don't love me, do you? If that's the case, I'll just leave then. This time, even Ken's parents began to apologize next to him. We don't have a place to live anymore. That was a shock. What do you mean? Our house got foreclosed on. Turns out Ken's family home will be repossessed in a few weeks. They've gone bankrupt. The debt that his father accumulated grew like a snowball and became an amount that's impossible for retirees to pay. Ken, who used to receive an allowance from his parents when he was single, probably thought he was in trouble and decided to get married, hoping for support. Now I understand why his mother was so kind before we got married. I can help you now. We're strangers. Even if my folks and I end up homeless, are you okay with that? You brought it on yourself, didn't you? Ken's ulterior motive was clear as day. I firmly told him I had no intention of giving him even one piece of furniture or electronics. Please don't say that. Have some mercy. It's too late for apologies. Now sort it out on your own. That's why I'm asking. I can't sort it out. I told Ken and his father, who were so persistent, that if they couldn't pay the rent, they should move out. The place is in my name. So if I cancel the lease, that's the end of it. Evicting them was easy. In the end, even if the lease was transferred, Ken probably couldn't afford to live here. I heard all of this from the real estate agent. I can't pay the rent. In the end, I decided to cancel the lease here. I no longer need this place, and since the divorce is final, everything is over. I somehow kicked out the stunned family of 3 and locked the door. What are we going to do now? I can move into a facility. Goodbye. Facilities like that probably have no freedom and are the worst, right? Good luck in that crappy environment. Maybe Ken felt unsatisfied, not having the last word because he spat out those bitter words. I ignored Ken and his parents and left the scene. But Ken wasn't going to stay put. A few days later, he showed up at the facility where I had moved. Hey, what's this about? Looking at the facility where I was, Ken looked like he was about to faint. It's not a crappy environment at all. It's a luxury facility worth $1 million. I had saved up money, and with the earnings from my investments, I bought this place. The previous occupant had left at the perfect time, so I was able to move in immediately. With the sale of my house and some extra income, I still had plenty left over. This facility is top-notch, with doctors and helpers on site. The floor plan is just like an apartment, with plenty of privacy. The room is a 3-bedroom, so families can live together. There are even couples and families living here. I can call a helper with the push of a button, and there's assisted bathing every day. I originally thought of this as my final residence, but I'm glad I made the move. You had this much money then? Why? I really don't want you coming all the way here. We're strangers now. Please leave. Then Ken suddenly started acting all sweet toward me. Honestly, it's creepy. Can't you just let me live here? What are you talking about? That's impossible. We're divorced. Face reality. That's why. Let's get remarried. I'm living in a motel now. Isn't that pitiful? I can't get a job because I don't have an address at the motel. He's such a smooth talker. He seems to have quickly abandoned his own parents. In the end, he only thinks about himself. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? You look pathetic, living off your parents at your age, becoming a freeloader after marriage, and now begging on the streets. Ken's face turned bright red. You're not ashamed to be clinging to your ex-wife. Look, everyone's watching, aren't they? Residents peeking from their balconies were watching. Actually, I had asked them in advance to look out if my ex-husband came to visit. I thought Ken would surely come looking for me at least once, either to gloat over my miserable state in the facility or to beg. The residents were very cooperative. They purposely looked at Ken with pity. It's like a real-life drama. I want to applaud them. Ken finally noticed the stares and seemed to realize how embarrassing he was being. I won't ask any more. With a pale face, he muttered those words and disappeared. I don't think he'll come here anymore. Later, when I went out, I ran into my mother-in-law working at a supermarket checkout. My father-in-law was a janitor, and my mother-in-law was a cashier. As soon as my mother-in-law spotted me, she turned her face and tried to hide. She was being scolded by a young employee for her attitude. Ken was apparently introduced to a job by someone he met at the motel cafe and was being exploited at a very low-paying job site. I frequently host home parties and live happily every day with people from the same facility. I also became good friends with other wheelchair users. If I had known such a community existed, I would have moved here sooner. I found the time to attend physical therapy sessions. My current goal is to get my legs moving on my own. I lead a fulfilling life both at work and in private. I'm sorry, but we already departed while I was using the restroom at the rest area. During that time, I received a call from Luke, and I couldn't help but wonder what he wanted at such a moment. Upon answering, I overheard Luke and his in-laws laughing boisterously. When I inquired about the commotion, he shared something unbelievable. They were going to enjoy themselves with the family, and I could head back home to clean or do something productive. Anticipating this trip for a long time, I felt a mix of excitement and reservations about traveling with his family. Staying in a luxury inn was something I had looked forward to. However, the shock of being left alone at a rest area, inside the restroom stall, left me feeling deeply betrayed. Despite my anger, I lightly replied, "Okay, unforgivable." Today marked not only our wedding anniversary, but also my birthday, and we embarked on this trip. I decided that he would regret this. My name is Lucy Mitchell, a 33-year-old housewife without children, living with my husband Luke. We celebrated our one-year wedding anniversary on my birthday. Luke, with his romantic nature, always cherished our anniversaries and birthdays. He was raised in a wealthy family, and those childhood memories lingered, prompting him to celebrate special days in grand style. We met at a matchmaking agency, where men from affluent backgrounds like Luke were popular. Despite initial doubts, I approached him, and luckily I seemed to be his type, leading to our marriage. Unbeknownst to me, after getting married, my life would take a turn for the worse. A year ago, Luke and I started our marital life in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city. Luke desired a larger house, but I disagreed, suggesting we live within our means. Despite his family's wealth, I felt guilty about our expensive $1,200 rent as a housewife. Luke assured me, "Don't worry. My dad will sort it out." As time passed, our marital life took a troubling turn. Luke's frequent visits to his parents' house, even for seemingly trivial reasons, left me feeling uneasy about our newly life. This unease grew when he casually mentioned having dinner with his parents on a regular evening without inviting me, his wife. The frequent absence and lack of inclusion in family events made me question the dynamics of our marriage. As I shared my concerns with a friend during a dinner, she expressed surprise at Luke's actions, stating, "He goes home that often and leaves you behind for a cousin's birthday. That's crazy." She had been married for 5 years, and she had more experience than me in married life. Realizing that her reaction was a common sentiment, I felt embarrassed. "You're right, it's weird. But according to Luke, it's normal." Seriously, don't take this the wrong way, but hasn't he really grown up yet? Maybe upon reflection, her comment struck a chord. It's unusual for a 35-year-old, even if he's set to take over his dad's business, to prioritize family affairs after getting married. I regretted not recognizing Luke's true nature before marrying him. Returning home after dinner with my friend, I felt down. "I'm home, Lucy. Where have you been? Isn't it normal for a wife to cook dinner and wait for her husband, Mrs. Mitchell? To my surprise, my mother-in-law was in the living room. Luke was apparently out, perhaps at a convenience store. Why are you here? Weren't you and Luke supposed to dine out tonight? That got canceled due to some issue at the restaurant. I thought Luke had messaged you just a bit ago. Didn't you check? She pointed it out, and I looked at my phone. Indeed, 10 minutes ago, Luke had messaged that he'd be home early, but that was just about when I got off the train. There's no way I could have gotten home and started dinner in such a short time. Yes, he did message, but I saw it just now. What the heck? This is the problem with kids from single-parent households. You can tell they weren't raised right. My mother-in-law's words stabbed me in the heart. Indeed, I was raised in a single mother's home. After my mom gave birth to me, my father passed away due to an illness. Despite that, my mother did her best to raise me lovingly. I wish she wouldn't say things that belittled my mother's hard work. It has nothing to do with being raised by a single parent. I just hadn't seen the message yet, I retorted, clearly irritated, but she brushed off my comment and changed the subject. Well, anyway, I've always noticed this, but your house is quite small. I think it's average. It's suitable for just the two of us. You can't be serious. I feel sorry for Luke, living in such a cramped space. My interactions with my mother-in-law continue to stress me out. Both my mother-in-law and father-in-law, perhaps because of their wealth, often seemed condescending. That's why I never got along with them. Realizing further conversation was futile, I silently started preparing dinner. Ignoring me, she went on and turned on the TV. From that day, she started dropping by unexpectedly more often. Even my father-in-law came along a couple of times. Mostly, they'd complain about how dirty the kitchen was or how cramped the house felt. Eventually, they'd sarcastically suggest, we have a bigger house. Why not move in? I absolutely didn't want that. I firmly declined every time. They always visited when Luke wasn't home, so Luke didn't know about their snide remarks. I once talked to him about it, but his reply was, why not? Why is living together a bad idea? I was dismayed when he too suggested moving in. From then on, I realized there was no point in discussing it with Luke, and I endured on my own. Soon, we'd be celebrating our first wedding anniversary, which also happened to be my birthday. For your birthday this weekend, I'm thinking of celebrating more grandly than last year. After all, it's also our anniversary, Luke said as he came home tipsy from work. Seeing his flushed face, I couldn't be sure of his sincerity. Knowing his love for celebrations, I felt a hint of excitement. What? Last year, you treated me to a delicious dinner, which was more than enough. That's nothing compared to what I've planned. Let's go on a family trip. A family trip. The term sounded odd for just the two of us. Noticing my confusion, Luke continued. My parents, cousins, uncles, and all will join. We're heading to a luxury resort in Palm Springs. All those people, and why Palm Springs? Got a problem with a family trip? Or is it Palm Springs you're not keen on? No, it's not that. Honestly, I couldn't understand why my birthday and our anniversary would involve his family, who had nothing to do with either occasion. I couldn't grasp what Luke was thinking. I've always known he's a bit out of touch with the general populace, but I hadn't expected this level of disparity. While the choice of Palm Springs puzzled me a bit, it wasn't a major issue. Sounds fun, right, Lucy? Sometimes you've got to let loose and enjoy. Luke, in his intoxicated state, grabbed my shoulders, and I found myself nodding in agreement. For the next week, I couldn't get the trip out of my mind. At first, I was skeptical about going with his entire family. But as Luke said, it's a rare vacation, and I should make the most of it. During the trip preparations, I noticed my growing excitement, and a genuine smile crept onto my face. I knew my in-laws would probably make snide remarks as usual, but I vowed to ignore them completely. Finally, the awaited Saturday arrived. Luke and I headed to his parents' house, our meeting point for the trip. Well, Lucy, you're late, aren't you? Do you even realize you're the star today? Right in front of the assembled family, My mother-in-law was quick to throw shade, but it seems she did realize that I was supposed to be the star, so it took the edge off her words a bit. I'm sorry, there was traffic, I replied. Excuses won't do. We should leave soon. Otherwise, we'll be late to our luxury resort. All right, let's get going. Despite their grumbling about our tardiness, it was tolerable. After all, they've been making such remarks throughout the past year. Luke's cousin appeared much younger than him, looking to be in his early 20s, with a sinister look in his eyes. I began to wonder if everyone in this family was mean-spirited. My paranoia was somewhat justified when he made a belittling comment. This is Luke's wife. Not what I expected. I diverted my gaze from him, figuring that reacting would only invite more nitpicking. I decided to show a mature demeanor. I'm so excited. I've been to luxury resorts multiple times, but tonight's place costs $1,000 per person. Hearing the figure, $11,000, I was both shocked and had a sudden thought. No way could it be. I climbed into my in-laws' car. Once my father-in-law hit the gas, the car swiftly started moving. The journey from here to our Palm Springs destination would take about 2 hours. We decided to take a short break at the next rest stop. About an hour into our journey, I excused myself. I'll be right back, heading to the restroom. All right, off you go, my mother-in-law waved, as if shooing away a stray dog. I headed to the rest stop bathroom, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me, or was it just my imagination? Taking a deep breath inside the bathroom stall, I felt relieved that the trip had been relatively uneventful so far. I hoped the remainder of our journey would be equally smooth. Just as I was settling into that thought, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Luke's name on the display. Expecting him to ask me to pick something up, I casually answered the call. I'm still in the restroom, Luke. With what sounded like amusement, he replied, alongside the laughter of my mother-in-law, sorry, but we've already left. There was a moment of stunned silence on my end, and laughter echoed from their side. What do you mean? When I asked Luke, he replied, we're going to have fun with our family. You should just go home and clean, Lucy dear. Today's trip is just for the Mitchell family. It's a pity, but you'll have to stay behind. Goodbye. I was told the unbelievable. I had been looking forward to this trip for a long time. Having his family join us was a bit of a concern, but staying at a luxury hotel had me excited. And now, they left me alone at the rest area. I was trembling inside the restroom stall, feeling utterly betrayed. Trying to hide my anger, I responded with a light. Okay, this was unforgivable. Today was our wedding anniversary and my birthday, and they brought me on this trip. I'll make them regret this. After leaving the restroom, I called someone. The person on the other end was shocked and shared some astonishing news. I asked, really? They responded, yes. Then the person on the phone promised to come pick me up. Left alone at the rest area like this was unbearable. Praying for a timely rescue, an hour later, my uncle came to pick me up in his car. I'm so sorry to trouble you like this. It's okay. It's quite an unfortunate situation. Yes, they're headed to a luxury hotel in Palm Springs. That means, my uncle tilted his head in thought, seeming to realize something. I think that's the case, I replied. I'm really sorry, but can you please take me there? I'll take the train back. Got it. The drive there is nice anyway. Uncle gladly accepted my request to go to Palm Springs. About an hour later, we arrived. In Palm Springs, Luke and the others came here. In front of us was a luxurious inn with a grand gate. It was a well-known hotel, the only luxury accommodation I knew of that cost $1,000 a night. At the reception, I was told, dinner starts at 6:00 p.m. Please follow me. The person who greeted me with a smile was my mother. Lucy, it's been a while. Dressed in an elegant outfit and smiling gracefully in a manner that could seem somewhat formal to others, it was undeniably my mother. Indeed, this inn has been run by my mother's family for many years, and she currently holds the position of the innkeeper. After becoming a single mother, she began working at this inn, so to me, this place feels like home. I had called my mother from the rest area and was surprised to hear that there was a reservation today from the group at Mitchell Securities. I had a suspicion when I heard they were going to a luxury hotel in Palm Springs, but I never imagined they would be coming to our very own inn. Of course, the family doesn't know that this inn is run by my mother. Still, what a terrible story, Lucy. You can't just let this slide. Yeah, I know. That's why I came here. I see. Why don't we get you changed over here? I prepared to greet them at the dinner table. An hour later, at 6:00 p.m., the in-law family gathered for dinner. I hid in the next room to remain unnoticed. I slightly opened the door to observe the inside. Ah, the spa was amazing. I'd want to come here every day if I could. If it were closer, we could indeed come every day. At the very least, if you become the CEO, we could afford to come here any time. Really looking forward to that. I mean, the subordinates handle all the work anyway. I want to become a CEO soon too. Luke and his family, thinking they were among themselves, were making some rather crude remarks. But when my mother appeared from the other side of the door and greeted them, the room went silent. Today, I will be in charge of serving you. Please let me know if you need anything. Seeing my mother bow with perfect grace, there was a tangible tension amongst the family. However, when the food was served, they resumed their inappropriate discussions. For a while, both my mother and I did nothing, simply watching the plates empty before them. It's great that we all could come. We got rid of the bothersome daughter-in-law, and the food is delicious. Perfect. If you say that, she might get angry, you know. It's fine. She's not really one of us, to be frank. She never was. After all, it would be a shame to have a child from a single-parent family in our household. Hearing her mother-in-law's harsh words, my frustration boiled to an almost uncontrollable point. At that very moment, my mother entered the room with a dessert plate loaded with cake and fruit. Today, I've heard it's Miss Lucy's birthday and also her wedding anniversary with her husband. May I know where Miss Lucy is seated? In response to my mother's question about where to place the cake, the family looked at each other confused. Nobody told you that? Excuse me, I'm the innkeeper, and I've clearly heard about it. Did Luke call? What? I didn't tell anyone. There was an awkward silence in the room, and the in-laws exchanged glances. In the end, the mother-in-law raised her hand. I am Lucy. I was too embarrassed to mention it at this age, but thank you all for the surprise. Given that the only woman in the room was the mother-in-law, her reaction was appropriate. However, my mother gave a faint smile upon seeing her act. Hey, what's so funny? Is it strange to be surprised at my age? No, not at all. I wasn't thinking that. Then what? Just bring the cake already. Yes, but before that, there's something I'd like to share. The irate mother-in-law barked at her. My mother composed herself. I swallowed hard. Lucy Mitchell is my daughter. What? Everyone present made a dumbfounded expression and raised their voices in shock. Seeing an opportunity, I swiftly opened the door from the adjacent room and stood next to my mother. Welcome. This innkeeper is my mother. It's a pleasure to meet you, Luke exclaimed. Lucy, why are you here? And what do you mean she's your mother? It means exactly that. This inn belongs to my family. I'd also intend to take over this place someday. In truth, Luke had never met my mother before. While part of it was due to my mother being busy with the inn, Luke and his parents also insisted on not meeting her face to face. I had received a phone call from Luke for our wedding introduction, but he never met her in person. I showed my mother a picture of Luke and explained who he was. It was an unconventional introduction, but I believed my mother had accepted him. From your conversations earlier, could you please refrain from mocking and belittling my mother for being a single parent? That's right. What's with the sudden drama? What grudge do you have against us? Neither Luke nor his mother nor anyone else seemed to realize the extent of the disrespect they had shown me. Exasperated, I let out my anger that had been building up. Grudges? If I have any grudges, it starts with you, Luke. I thought you were a good person when we got married, but it turns out you're a mama's boy. You married me, so you should prioritize me above all else, right? Don't join forces with your parents to mock me. Faced with my undeniable logic, Luke was rendered speechless. My mother just listened quietly to my outburst and to my in-laws. Why do you treat me this way? If you find me such a nuisance, I can leave the Mitchell family right now. What? You'll become a lonely, poor single woman. Yeah, are you sure about being alone? Both the mother-in-law and Luke sneered. Looking back and forth between my mother and me, I stared back fiercely. It's okay. Actually, I'm pregnant, so I won't be lonely. And if I inherit this inn, I won't have any financial worries. The truth is, I found out I was pregnant last week, and I hadn't told Luke yet. Only my mother knew, which is why she wasn't surprised. A child? What are you talking about? I haven't heard about this. Wait, Lucy, if that's the case, it changes things. You should have told us sooner. Upon learning I was pregnant, the family immediately changed their tune. I couldn't stand their fickle and unreasonable behavior any longer and shouted again, "No, my decision is final. Let's proceed with the divorce through lawyers. I will live happily with my child and my mother." Saying this, I'd opened the door to the hall they were in and left. The door slammed shut with a sharp noise. I'm done with this. My child will be happier without that family, whether trying to change my mind or not. I received over 30 calls a day from Luke and his parents. Eventually, I blocked all their numbers. A few days later, I received a letter from Luke informing me of our official divorce. The letter expressed his regret and pleaded for me to return, but I ignored it and tore it up. I thought he might neglect our child just like he prioritized his parents over me, and I absolutely didn't want that. Being alone and lonely would be your fate, not mine. I thought he should enjoy his bachelor life. Currently, I am nurturing my child in my womb and discussing future plans with my mother. Once the child is born and grows a bit, I plan to send them to daycare and join the inn's business. The path to becoming the next innkeeper is long, but to raise my child properly, I am determined to work hard. Divorce papers had been duly filed, and when it came to dividing the property, I made the decision to claim the house. Despite my insistence, Ben dismissed any notion that he could contest it. Uttering those final words, he abruptly left the hospital room, indifferent to my pleas for him to wait and my desire for a meaningful conversation. That was how I found myself discarded, even in the midst of battling a serious illness like cancer. Loneliness enveloped me, but strangely, the negative emotions that once lingered in my heart began to dissipate. It was as if my love for Ben had evaporated. At that moment, I acknowledged that Ben, who had insulted me and consistently acted selfishly, deserved some form of retribution. I began calmly strategizing my revenge. My name is Wendy Morgan, a 50-year-old housewife living with my husband Ben. Our marriage, devoid of children, had spanned 30 years. Initially, I believed we were a supportive couple, but an irreparable rift had developed between us. In my understanding of marriage, partners should support, challenge, and complement each other. However, this was absent in our relationship. Returning from an errand, I found Ben demanding dinner immediately, oblivious to the continuous responsibilities of a housewife. Even on his days off, he prioritized his own leisure over supporting me. Over the years, Ben never extended a helping hand, regardless of how busy or unwell I was. His perception of a housewife's role seemed limited to constant labor, and he never allowed me to rest, even during illness. I had hoped for a marriage built on mutual support, but Ben's actions contradicted that ideal. The early days saw me attempting to bridge the gap, but Ben remained resolute, asserting his belief that as a housewife, I had no grounds to complain. Love had long faded, and I didn't anticipate unwavering support in everything. Still, I longed for simple kindness during challenging days. Ben's refusal to acknowledge my humanity and hardships widened the rift between us, turning our marriage joyless and meaningless. I grasped the situation more acutely than anyone else. It was during this realization that I sensed something awry with my health. While I had always been prone to illness, this time felt distinctly different. I promptly reached out to my father, who escorted me to the hospital, where I received the diagnosis of cancer. Fortunately, it was detected early, and the doctor assured me that I could commence treatment immediately. Eager to begin the healing process, I implored my father to bring only the essentials from home. Hastily, I navigated through the hospital admission procedures. Unable to meet Ben that day due to his work commitments, I conveyed the disquieting news to him through a brief message. I informed him, "Cancer has been found, and I'm being hospitalized for treatment immediately." In these moments of anxiety about the uncertain future, Ben's image crept into my thoughts. Despite my belief that my love for him had waned, a latent desire to face him properly and continue our life together as a couple lingered deep within my heart. Even though Ben had consistently been aloof and indifferent, I envisioned a scenario where, now that I was weakened, he might express concern and ask, "Are you okay?" I yearned for some warm words and would have been content with just one visit. I wondered if he struggled with meals and household chores in my absence. I felt remorse for not being able to fulfill the household duties I had always taken for granted. However, as days passed in the hospital, Ben never visited. He had read my message, and yet there was no expression of concern, not even a simple reply acknowledging the situation. His apparent indifference despite my serious illness shook me to the core, causing profound pain. Realizing the futility of my expectations, I decided to stop anticipating anything from Ben. With this newfound mindset, I faced the grueling battle against the illness. The treatment was as demanding as expected, marked by enduring pain and suffering. The medication's side effects took a toll on my body, leading to many sleepless nights filled with discomfort. There were moments when I contemplated giving up on treatment, allowing my deteriorating body to take its course and end my life. However, each time I felt this way, the encouraging words from my parents, reassuring me that I was doing great and things would surely get better, compelled me to summon strength and endure until today. Then, on a day when I was particularly unwell, lying in bed and staring blankly at the ceiling, the door to my room unexpectedly swung open. It wasn't the day for my parents to visit, and I couldn't help but wonder who had entered. The identity of the visitor became clear as I shifted my gaze and saw Ben standing there. Had he finally come to visit me, genuinely concerned about my condition? As he looked at my emaciated face with hollow cheeks, a whirlwind of emotions left me speechless. Would he come to dislike me even more? Without displaying any concern for my state, Ben sat on a chair next to the bed, stared at me, and laughed. "So this is how bad one can look with cancer, huh? You don't even look like a woman anymore." His words made me feel as if the blood had drained from my face. These were words that should never be said to someone fighting cancer. I didn't want him to say anything more, but unaware of my feelings, Ben continued with even more hurtful words. "Ever since you've been hospitalized and not at home, every day has been like heaven. The house is a mess, but I don't even have to go back there. Life is so comfortable without you." His heartless words reopened my wounds. Why must I be subjected to such cruel words? Why is there not a single word of concern from him? Although I wanted to vehemently criticize Ben, my weakened body couldn't move as I wished, and all I could do was silently accept his brutal words. I looked at Ben with a vacant gaze, and noticing my stare, he laughed condescendingly. Then, suddenly saying, "Oh yeah, by the way," he uttered unbelievable words. "Oh yeah, by the way, I've already filed the divorce papers. I'll be taking the house. As for the property division, you hardly have any right to refuse." The moment I heard those words, my vision blurred and twisted. Did he file the divorce papers without even consulting me? Why? As I was at a loss for words, Ben continued to speak. "I've really fallen for someone. She's 20 years younger, but I'm serious about her. I plan to be with her, so you're in the way." The realization that he was having an affair raced through my mind. However, then, having said what he wanted to, began preparing to leave. Wait a minute. Even as I said that, Ben paid no attention. There was clearly no love left for me in his heart. The realization was so painful that it didn't matter anymore. I see. Understood. I said this, and Ben left the hospital room with a pleased laugh. After that, I endured my treatment with even more determination than before. Despite the hardships, I focused my will, resolved to completely cure my cancer and regain my health. 2 days passed like this. It might sound short, but for me, unable to sleep properly at night, those 2 days felt very long. I wondered if the divorce Ben mentioned really happened, or if he had said it just to unnerve me. The uncertainty was unbearable, but somehow I managed to continue my treatment. In fact, I had a trump card to completely bring down Ben. Even Ben, who seemed almost inhuman, would be thrown into chaos once he realized it. If panicked, he would surely try to contact me in some way. While waiting with this thought, Ben's call came in. Thinking it improper to answer in the hospital room, I pretended not to notice. But Ben persistently kept calling, even on silent mode. The continuous calls were too annoying. I'm in the hospital room, and it's inconvenient to have my phone ringing, so please don't call. After sending this message, the calls finally stopped. But then came texts like, "Please let me talk to you just once. Please, I was wrong about everything. I'll apologize properly." Apparently, he had resorted to messaging since I wasn't answering his calls. All of his words seemed like self-defense. Probably, Ben realized why I accepted the divorce so easily. Can I come over there now? Faced with my silence, Ben seemed to have reached his limit and sent that message. Honestly, facing Ben now amidst my grueling battle with illness felt like nothing but pain. But if I refused, he would probably keep calling. So I replied, "Do as you like." My revenge was about to begin. Ben, who had unjustly treated me for so long and divorced without consent, deserved a severe punishment that would make him despise his life. I had been eagerly anticipating the moment when I could bring him down to the depths of despair. "Hey, what the hell is this all about?" Ben entered the room with a shout, his tone suggesting a palpable sense of panic. To an outsider, it might seem like he was overreacting, but given the circumstances, it was natural for Ben to be agitated. After all, I had been concealing an incredibly important secret, and the critical moment had arrived. "I had no idea that you had assets worth 10 million. Why didn't you tell me how much you had?" Ben spoke, placing my passbook on the desk, clearly displaying a deposit of over $10 million. I never mentioned it because you never asked. How could I imagine a housewife like you having so much money? If I knew you had this much, I wouldn't have divorced. That's not my problem. It's Ben's fault for divorcing me without proper confirmation. Stop with the pointless excuses. Despite his domineering behavior and divorcing me without my consent, Ben couldn't stop his selfish remarks upon discovering my assets. "Why didn't you tell me? I wouldn't have divorced you if I knew." I decided to reveal the truth to the selfish Ben. The truth is, I accumulated this fortune of over $10 million through investments. I started to fill my spare time, and it was my parents who suggested, "Why don't you try investing?" Our family life was comfortable even on Ben's salary alone, but I wanted to contribute to our finances in some way. My father, knowledgeable about investments, immediately taught me diligently when I expressed interest. Thanks to his guidance, I started with the hope of making even a small profit and continued investing steadily. I made my first investment 5 years ago, and since then, I rapidly improved, becoming capable of earning significant amounts of money through investments. Even my father was astonished, saying, "I never expected you to grow this much." The profits I generated over these 5 years are the $10 million recorded in the passbook Ben brought. Actually, I was planning to tell you when the timing was right, but then I got cancer. You divorced me without listening to anything I had to say. I never intended to keep this wealth a secret forever. Once I overcame my battle with cancer and could return to my normal life, I planned to tell Ben about this $10 million. I had originally intended to share it with him, envisioning that we could continue our life as a couple and use it when necessary. However, Ben selfishly chose to divorce before I could reveal this financial secret. Now that we're strangers, it feels odd to disclose it to him. Given this outcome, the entire $10 million probably belongs to me. As I recounted my story, Ben's face flushed, and he began shouting, "If I knew you had this much money, I wouldn't have divorced you. It's your fault for keeping it a secret, so pay me $10 million in the property division. You need to atone for the sin of keeping secrets from your husband." Whether he was panicking over the reality of such a vast fortune or frustrated that he couldn't get his hands on it, Ben started saying the unthinkable. Since we were already divorced, no matter what, it was impossible to give him this $10 million. Still, Ben, seeing but unable to reach the $1 million right before him, started making unrealistic demands. In response, I unintentionally laughed, then yelled at me. "What are you laughing at? Stop belittling me. I've always been annoyed by your attitude. I never thought you'd be so cunning to have such a fortune as a wife. A wife's assets belong to her husband. You have to give me this $10 million. I never intended to keep this secret forever. I was planning to tell you. But you divorced me first. Stop making excuses. It's all your fault for keeping secrets." Without any recollection of making excuses, Ben became more enraged with each word I spoke, blaming and berating me. His shouting was too much for my head, still recovering from illness, and I couldn't bear it. Realizing it was futile to continue talking with Ben, who wouldn't accept my words and would surely try to make me the villain, I quickly ended it. "Enough is enough. You divorced me of your own accord, right? Who filed the divorce papers without my consent? I always thought your behavior was terrible, but I never imagined you could be so cruel. To think a person could feel this much frustration." Now my heart was filled not with the pain of battling cancer, but with resentment towards Ben. He should have realized that shouting this loudly would affect my weakened body. More than that, I couldn't suppress my anger towards this selfish person who sat arrogantly beside my bed, accusing me with words born from his self-centered thoughts. Do you know what I thought when I found out I had cancer? I thought that answering him might make Ben worry about me a little, be kinder to me, and reconsider his feelings. Instead, he didn't even come to visit me in the hospital. When he finally showed up, he told me he had filed for divorce without my consent and that he would take the house. How could he be so selfish and then come here criticizing me for having substantial assets? I've said it many times, I never intended to keep it a secret forever. I was planning to find the right time to tell you. You destroyed that chance with your own hands. I had never blamed Ben this much before. I had always forgiven his selfish behavior, thinking we were a couple who should support each other. I never scolded or reprimanded him, always enduring for his sake. But the reason I could endure and keep going was that I had love for Ben. I truly loved him. But now, I don't have any love left for him. All I feel is uncontrollable anger and disbelief towards Ben, who only speaks selfishly. How can someone be so self-centered? What kind of upbringing leads to such a lack of empathy? After all, a person who indulges in an affair and divorces without consent can't possibly have serious thoughts. I was too stunned to speak, realizing it was futile to harbor any doubts. "Please, my girlfriend found out you have $10 million and says she'll divorce me if I don't get it from you. If I don't get this money, I'll be all alone. You still love me, right? Don't you want to help the person you love?" So Ben's mistress also knows about my $10 million fortune. He must have carelessly told her. From Ben's story, it seems his mistress is also quite obsessed with money. Birds of a feather flock together, I guess. As much as Ben and his mistress seem to be a match, I couldn't care less about him. No matter how much suffering comes his way, it has nothing to do with me anymore. Please, I'll do anything. Just give me the $10 million. Otherwise, I'll suffer. Please help me. I had never seen Ben so desperate, and his expression seemed so ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. At the same time, I felt disappointed and miserable, realizing he had never been this desperate about anything related to me. The more we talked, the colder my feelings for Ben became. I realized that talking to him anymore was pointless. No more dealing with this rotten man could possibly lead to my happiness. I felt foolish for suffering and hoping during my illness that he might come and speak kindly to me one day. Oblivious to my feelings, Ben continued to plead. Please, I'm begging you. Help me. But I couldn't bear to hear his words any longer. Please leave now, I said. Ben started to plead with a look of desperation. Even that was noisy and unpleasant to me. I pressed the nurse call button, explained the situation, and asked the nurse to get rid of Ben. A security guard came and forcibly removed him from the room. Please listen to me. I need you, he shouted until the moment he was thrown out. But I no longer accepted any of his words. Afterwards, he visited the hospital many times, but the nurses, knowing the situation, never let him near my room again. According to a friend, Ben, unable to get the $10 million, disappointed his mistress and was promptly divorced. Now left alone, as for me, I continued to confront my cancer with determination and finally recovered and was discharged. The relief of overcoming my difficult battle with cancer and the newfound energy I felt were more precious than anything. Now I'm living a peaceful and relaxed life, gradually using the assets I grew through investments. Despite my efforts to be kind, it's disheartening that my sister-in-law spoke with an icy tone, seemingly pushing me away. She remained resolute about claiming my brother's estate and showed no willingness to compromise. I couldn't shake the growing anxiety that enveloped me, casting a shadow on my spirits. I'm Kathy Morgan, a 27-year-old doctor at a university hospital. My brother recently passed away, and today marks his funeral. I find myself at his house, surrounded by people who remember him. Amidst the crowd, Jocelyn, my brother's wife, approached me. Ah, there you are, Kathy. I'm glad I found you. You've been working hard today. Could we talk over there for a bit? Jocelyn asked, initiating a conversation. Yes, Jocelyn. Sure, I replied, following her. My brother and Jocelyn married 3 years ago and moved into the spacious house where we grew up. The house, meticulously built by our parents, boasted a large garden and other features. Despite our comfortable living arrangements, our family faced challenges. My mother battled a chronic illness, confining her to a hospital since my early childhood. My father's wealth allowed us a comfortable life, but he too succumbed to overwork and joined my mother in death. Left alone in the large house, my brother and I became each other's company. Though he continued living there and flourished in his medical career, I ventured into a life of my own after university. The days leading up to my brother's funeral passed in a blur. As we moved from crowded rooms to quieter hallways, Jocelyn approached me with a grave matter. Actually, there's something I need to talk to you about, Kathy. It might seem too soon after the funeral, but it's about the inheritance. It's a very important matter. So, I believed it was necessary to have a discussion with you beforehand. However, I found myself bewildered and uneasy as Jocelyn suddenly broached the topic of inheritance. Are you talking about my brother's inheritance? I asked, seeking clarification. Yes, that's right. Since we don't have children, the inheritance would be between you and me. Legally, I would get 3/4 and you 1/4, so I would inherit $1 million. Jocelyn explained, her hand covering her mouth, a subtle smile forming. Her revelations didn't stop there. Oh, and I'll be taking this house too. After all, it's the house where I lived with Henry, and it's filled with our memories as his wife. It's only natural that I inherit the house, right? She continued. What I wanted to confirm with you, Kathy, was this. You don't have any objections, do you? Jocelyn spoke gently and calmly, but there was a lack of the expected sorrow over losing her husband. I had only met Jocelyn at my brother's wedding, making this our second encounter. The indescribable unease I felt during our first meeting returned as I observed her behavior. Back then, I only vaguely understood, but now, after losing my brother, she seemed to be revealing her true nature. Unable to contain my discomfort, I confronted Jocelyn. Jocelyn, I think this is not the way such important matters should be discussed. Properly, on another day, I asserted. Upon my objection, Jocelyn suddenly turned distant. Her previously calm face tightened, and she looked at me with cold eyes. Oh, is that so? I'm trying to be nice, and yet you don't understand. What a pity. Well, I have a reliable lawyer. I will make sure to get my share of the inheritance, she said, her tone condescending. I married Henry because he came from a wealthy family. Why would I marry such a serious and boring man for any other reason? He was truly uninteresting, and I'm genuinely relieved that he's gone from this world. I couldn't believe what Jocelyn was saying. My bad premonition about my sister-in-law was proving true. Did my brother know this side of her? If he did, why did he choose to marry someone so unsuitable for him? Shocked and unable to say anything, I watched as Jocelyn walked away, having said what she wanted and seen my reaction. She probably felt there was no need to stay any longer. I stood there frozen, overwhelmed by complex emotions. Even after returning to my own home, I felt downcast and engulfed in gloom. I had a feeling that more unpleasant things might follow, leaving me restless as these thoughts weighed on me. I found myself reminiscing about the years spent with my brother, feeling as if my heart would burst. Realizing I was now alone, tears involuntarily traced my cheeks. Then, a precious promise I had made with my brother vividly came back to me, as if I were seeing it right in front of my eyes. Kathy, I decided when I grow up, I'll become a doctor, one good enough to cure Mom's illness. If Big Brother is going to be a doctor, then I'll become one too. We'll study together and find a cure for Mom's illness, right? Let's work hard to become doctors together. Then Mom will surely get better, my brother had declared, his face beaming with happiness. That important promise echoed in my mind after our mother passed away. My brother reaffirmed his resolve to me, saying, Kathy, I've decided to pursue medicine. There are many people like Mom fighting against diseases. I want to continue researching until we find a treatment for her illness. I shared his sentiment, and together we seriously aimed to become doctors. But now my brother is gone, and I felt the weight of working hard for both of us. 3 days later, a problem arose. I received a call on my cell phone from the hospital where my brother had worked. The caller, Robert, a subordinate of my brother, apologized for contacting me suddenly and expressed a need to discuss something regarding Henry's wife. Agreeing to meet at the hospital, I waited in the cafeteria for Robert. He soon appeared and got straight to the point after a brief greeting. He explained, Actually, yesterday, Jocelyn suddenly came to the ward. She brought some sweets, saying my husband received great care here. Then she asked who was the closest to her husband among his colleagues. Describing Henry as kind and dependable, Robert recounted their college days and work experiences. However, Jocelyn's line of questioning seemed to change, as if she was probing for something more. She then asked, Is there anything my husband was hiding from me? Instinctively feeling that getting further involved was dangerous, I answered, Not that I know of. Suddenly, Jocelyn raised her voice, demanding to see where her husband's belongings were. She insisted that she could check them right there, threatening consequences if anything hidden was found. Understanding that Jocelyn was searching for something related to the inheritance, Robert explained that he refused her request, citing the confidential and personal nature of the ward. However, she was later seen wandering around the hospital, probing other staff. I couldn't forgive Jocelyn for barging into my brother's workplace and troubling unrelated people. Deciding it was best to meet with her directly and settle things, I thanked Robert and was about to leave when Jocelyn appeared at the hospital entrance. It seemed like she was planning to probe around the hospital again today. Noticing me, Jocelyn approached and spoke. Oh, Kathy, what are you doing here? Were you thinking the same thing, perhaps? I found myself speechless, maintaining a silent demeanor as Jocelyn suddenly burst into laughter. You're searching too, aren't you? You don't have to hide it. Searching for what? Pretending you don't know Henry's will. He must have thought that if I got it, nothing good would happen. He would have written a will to prevent me from getting the inheritance. If he did write one, he must have given it to someone without hiding it, so I probed you. But it seemed you didn't know, Jocelyn remarked, continuing her tirade despite my silence. But really, Henry's sister, not knowing anything, he must not have trusted you. You didn't hear anything even when Henry was suffering, did you? Henry didn't rely on you, it seems, she continued, her words hitting me like a barrage. My head spun, and I gradually lost track of what my sister-in-law was saying. Given your reaction, you really didn't know. About a year ago, I noticed Henry's demeanor was different, so I asked him if something was wrong. Then he said he might be ill with the same disease as your mother. He looked very troubled. His complexion was poor too. Henry was often busy and away, and I was out too, so we didn't see each other much at home. But I noticed something was wrong with him. He must have been suffering mentally. As for me, I married him thinking I never have to worry about money. To be burdened with caring for a chronically ill husband was the last thing I wanted, Jocelyn confidently explained, seemingly unaware of the impact her words had on me. In shock, particularly about Henry suffering from an illness, I stood there stunned. Henry sounded normal during the occasional phone calls. He must have hidden it, not wanting to worry me. But I should have noticed something was wrong. We were the only siblings, and I didn't even know that he was suffering from the same illness as our mother. It was terrifying, especially since I had witnessed our mother suffer from it. While I was lost for words in shock, Jocelyn pressed on. Are you blaming yourself, Kathy? Honestly, you and your brother are too serious and gloomy. It's sickening. I can't wait to get the inheritance and say goodbye to such dreary people. After her cutting remark, Jocelyn was about to leave when Robert's voice came from behind me. Excuse me, is this really a conversation to have in the middle of a hospital? Frankly, it's a disturbance. There are other patients here. If you're done, please leave. Robert, is that you? Were you eavesdropping just now? That's very polite of you. Even if Jocelyn raises her voice, if it's a conversation I don't want to hear, I can't help but overhear it. Jocelyn retorted, turning around with a surprised expression. Ah, Dr. Hansen, weren't you abroad? When did you return? Ah, yes, that's right. I departed from there the day before yesterday and just returned. I was supposed to come back sooner, but my flight was delayed. You're Kathy Morgan, Henry's sister, right? I was just about to go see you. This is perfect timing. Yes, I am Henry's sister. I awkwardly responded to the sudden conversation. Scott, seemingly searching for something, began rummaging through his bag. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Here you go. This is Henry's will. He asked me to give it to you if he died. Sorry, it's late. I'm glad I could finally deliver it, Scott explained, handing me Henry's will enclosed in a brown envelope. I couldn't help but wonder why my brother gave the will to Scott. Why did my brother give this to you, Scott? I know, right? I've been friends with Henry for a long time. You might not remember me, Kathy. Do you recognize this? Scott showed me 3 moles on the back of his right hand. As a child, I saw those moles and said they looked like the Big Dipper. Ah, those moles. Could it be Scotty? Scott used to live nearby and was my brother's best friend. I affectionately called him Scotty, and we often played together. He moved away in high school, and I had completely forgotten about him. Kathy, you remembered. That's great. I reconnected with Henry when I became a doctor. I'd always felt we were similar, but I never imagined we'd end up in the same profession. Henry talked about surprising you with our reunion, but then you found out about his illness. That's when he came to me with a request. He knew I also had a law degree, so I guess that's why he trusted me with his will, Scott explained. Finishing his explanation, Scott turned toward Jocelyn, addressing her with a cold tone. Ah, about the inheritance, you might want to give up. Deceiving a kind-hearted person like Henry might work, but not with me. Unfortunately for you, Henry was aware of your cunning nature. He asked me to watch over his wife in case something happened to him. I've been getting reports from his subordinates about your abnormal behavior, Jocelyn. You were planning to find the will, forge it, and claim the inheritance, weren't you? But if it's too late now, it's in your best interest to back off quietly. Besides, Henry said the right use of the inheritance is something only my sister Kathy would understand. I see, so that's how it is. But to trust a sister who didn't even know about her brother's illness to leave a large sum of money to such a young girl, really, what was he thinking? Who knows what she'll use it for? Jocelyn maintained a defiant attitude, but her face had paled slightly. Looking around, I noticed a crowd had gathered due to the commotion. Among them were young doctors talking to each other. Hey, isn't that the person who wrote that paper and made headlines recently, right? I was thinking the same. That's Kathy Morgan, Henry's sister. I read her paper on rare disease research, and it was truly impressive. I heard she's going to do research abroad soon. The conversation among the young doctors caught the attention of other medical personnel, causing a buzz in the area. More discussions were overheard. Isn't that Henry Morgan's wife causing a scene? She's famous for being seen around Fifth Avenue. Oh, well, that's true. Shopping for luxury brands, going on trips, living a flashy life. I heard she's been supporting a gigolo. Maybe she's after the inheritance. That's possible. I mean, she's been wandering around the hospital, asking questions. It's creepy. Amidst various conversations, I realized I hadn't yet checked the will from my brother. I peered into the brown envelope in my hands. Inside, there was a piece of stationery and a white envelope marked Will. Upon opening it, I saw it began with "To Kathy" in my brother's handwriting. As I read through it, I was so shocked by the contents that I instinctively handed the will to Scotty. Scotty, this is... After reading the will, Scotty smiled quietly and addressed Jocelyn. Jocelyn, it seems you've lost. Henry was planning to end his marriage with you. The letter says so. About the marriage certificate you forced him to write, it seems Henry never submitted it, so he wanted to assure his sister that she could rest easy. You and Henry were effectively in a common law marriage. You never had any right to the inheritance in the first place. That's a lie. There's no way he would do such a thing. Jocelyn's momentum faded, and she began muttering quietly to herself. Kath, can I see that envelope too? May I? Oh, sure. Scotty peered inside the brown envelope and confirmed its contents, then added another blow. Here's the official will as well, Jocelyn. If you want to see for yourself, I won't stop you. Feel free. Jocelyn's face turned ashen, and she looked visibly upset. She seemed at a loss for words, her lips trembling. Continuous criticism of Jocelyn rose from the onlookers. Jocelyn, now without an escape, was frozen in place. Soon, the hospital's administration, alerted by the commotion, had the crowd dispersed to their respective duties. When I looked up again, Jocelyn was gone. After that day, she disappeared from our family home and never reappeared before me. Following my brother's will, I inherited the estate. My research paper on the rare disease that affected my mother and brother received high acclaim, leading me to relocate overseas to continue my research. Part of the inheritance was used as a donation to help those suffering from the rare disease, and the rest was allocated for research funding. Scotty, my brother's best friend, and now more than that, became my life partner. We, as medical colleagues working abroad, are planning to register after our marriage this June. Our hope to free more people from the grip of the disease that afflicted my mother and brother remains unchanged. Together as husband and wife, we aim to continue our research, supporting each other along the way. Checking my phone, I noticed there were 13 missed calls, all from my mother-in-law. Not again. Just as this thought crossed my mind, my phone vibrated again. Hello, I answered, and my mother-in-law shouted loudly. Brittany, where is this month's $33,000 support money? What I'm talking about, the $3,000 for this month hasn't been transferred yet. Her voice dripped with anger, never considering our situation. My patience reached its limit. She never reflected on her words or actions, even in this state. It was time for the last resort. I told my mother-in-law on the other end of the phone, your son has passed away, so I can no longer provide support. I am Brittany Wagner, a 32-year-old part-time housewife working at a major financial company. I married about 2 years ago, meeting my husband Justin through a shared hobby. His kindness and wonderful smile captivated me, and after a year of dating, we got engaged. We believed we couldn't find better partners than each other. Everything went smoothly until we faced a problem: my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had passed away years ago, and with no siblings, the only family left was my mother-in-law. Trouble started when we visited her to announce our engagement. As I greeted her, Sandra, my mother-in-law, showed her displeasure. "Are you Justin's fiancé?" "Yes, I am. My name is Brittany Wagner." "Nice to meet you." You seem rather plain. I wonder what Justin sees in you." It's curious. I couldn't tell if she was serious or joking. Shocked, I heard such words from the mother of the man I loved. Seeing my distress, Justin looked displeased with his mother. "Wait, Mom, why would you say something like that all of a sudden? Why can you so casually say such awful things about the person I brought? It's different. I just want to choose the right woman for you. I brought her here because I decided to marry her. It's not up to you to comment on my choice, Destin. You don't have to be so cold. I'm just thinking about what's best for you." The argument between mother and son unfolded, creating a tense atmosphere. As it was my first meeting with my mother-in-law, I couldn't intervene. The uncomfortable air lingered even after the argument, but ultimately, we conveyed our intention to marry. As we left, Sandra spoke to Justin in a somewhat disgruntled tone. "Hey, Justin, you'll keep that promise even after we get married, right?" "Huh? What promise?" "You know about the promise of financial support." "Ah, that. I will continue to do it as always. Please don't bring this up in front of Brittany." The atmosphere between my husband and his mother had been tense for a while, making the air feel heavy. On the way back in the car, I asked Justin about something that had been on my mind. "Hey, Justin, about what you and your mother were discussing when we were leaving." "Ah, yeah. I suppose I should discuss something with you. I heard about financial support, and since my dad passed away, I've been sending money to my mom every month." "How much are you sending?" $2,000 each month." "What? $2,000? I raised my voice unconsciously, shocked by the amount. Justin sighed deeply and began to speak slowly. "Actually, my mom is in debt." "Debt?" "Yeah, she got into debt from gambling in the past. She's been paying it off and living on that, but her legs aren't in good shape anymore. So she spends more time at home now, and she still needs money to live, right?" "Well, yes, but I still think $2,000 is too much." "I know, but if I even slightly reduce the amount, she keeps calling me persistently." "Well, a parent is still a parent, you know. I worry about her since we can't live together." "I see. Justin is incredibly caring towards his mother, but it can't be helped. Since his father passed away, his mother is the only family he has left. No matter what her character is like, she's still an important mother to Justin. At that time, all I could think was what a kind person my husband was. Then, one day, 2 months after we got married, during my lunch break, I received a call on my smartphone. It was from my mother-in-law. "Hello." "Yes," I answered, and she began speaking in a cheerful tone. "It's been a while, Brittany. I have something to discuss. Are you free now?" "Yes, I'm free. What's going on?" "Well, I was thinking maybe you could also start sending me some financial support." I was speechless at her unexpected request, but my mother-in-law continued happily. "You mentioned you work at a financial company, right? So you must have a good salary." "No, that's not the case." "Are you trying to lie to me because you don't want to give me money?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then why not?" "But Mother, Justin is still sending you money every month, isn't he?" "Yes, he is." She didn't seem to appreciate the support she was already receiving. I spoke up firmly. "Please listen calmly, mother-in-law. Continuing to send as much as $2,000 a month is a really big deal, you know? And yet, you still want more. I can't understand that." "Oh, is that so? You say that. But if you could just contribute the remaining $1,000, Justin wouldn't be burdened. What do you mean by that? I have Justin as a co-signer on my debt, which means if I default on my payments, the creditors will come after him. Do you understand what I'm saying? What? But wasn't the $2,000 Justin sends used for paying off the debt? Well, the thing is, it's not enough. I haven't told Justin yet, but the debt is quite substantial. It seemed from the way my mother-in-law spoke that this was a truth unknown to my husband. If we were to have children in the future, it would inevitably mean more expenses. On top of that, paying off my mother-in-law's debt wouldn't be easy. However, if her repayments fell behind by the time the debt transferred to Justin, the interest would likely have ballooned significantly. It was easy to foresee that refusing to help now would ultimately burden my husband. Realizing that, the best course might be to ensure she pays off her debt completely. I hesitantly conveyed to my mother-in-law, "I understood. I'll contribute to the support as well." "Really, Brittany? You're amazing. I knew you would say that. Combined with Justin's, it'll be $3,000 a month. This will be used to properly pay off the debt, right?" "Of course. I plan to pay off the entire amount in about a year. Please promise to pay it off without any delay." "Okay, I understand. It's a promise. So I'll be expecting the support starting from this month," my mother-in-law said, unilaterally ending the call. The stress piled onto my exhausted body, and I felt increasingly depressed. $1,000 every month, that's a significant burden, but it's necessary to prevent future troubles for us as a couple. And if my mother-in-law can't live properly, Justin wouldn't like that either. That evening, I promptly reported this to my husband. He said, "You shouldn't have to go through all this trouble." But I had already agreed with my mother-in-law. I explained it was a tough decision made to avoid future burdens on us. With a look of regret, my husband said, "I'm really sorry, but thank you," showing understanding for my decision. Time passed, and 2 years have gone by since this decision. The support, which was supposed to end in a year, is still ongoing, and we continue to transfer $3,000 to my mother-in-law every month. To complicate matters, my husband fell ill about 2 months ago and has been unable to work. He's on sick leave and receiving a small amount of sickness allowance, but it's minuscule compared to his usual salary. Last month, I used my savings to send the $3,000 to my mother-in-law. But if this continues, even our living expenses will become difficult. Incredibly, my mother-in-law hasn't once visited Justin in the hospital. I informed her a long time ago about his hospitalization, but instead of visiting, she only contacts me to ensure the continuation of the support. Frustrated by her behavior, I finally brought up the subject with my husband. "Justin, your mother only talks about money. Even knowing you're hospitalized, we need to seriously consider whether to continue the support." "Yeah, I've been thinking the same. I don't want to burden Brittany any further. She's been calling and messaging this month asking, is the support coming?" Seriously, even though her own son is in the hospital, all she thinks about is money. Justin, looking somewhat gaunt, expressed his anger towards his mother. Then, with a sudden idea, he said, "Ah, I've got it," and smiled. "What is it, Justin?" "Well, I just thought of something. It's a last resort, though. Something good." "About my mother?" "Huh, what?" My husband proposed an unexpected plan. It might seem excessive, but it seemed the only way to get through to my mother-in-law in her current state. A few weeks later, Justin was discharged from the hospital, fortunately in good health. Since there was no response from my mother-in-law despite numerous attempts to contact her, we hadn't informed her of my husband's discharge date. For the past 2 weeks or so, she had been incessantly demanding financial support. There's no need to purposely send money to a mother who doesn't even worry about her son, my husband remarked while having coffee. As we relaxed, a message came to my smartphone. On closer inspection, there were 13 missed calls from my mother-in-law. Not again. As my phone vibrated again, it was another call from my mother-in-law. I deliberately turned on the speaker so that my husband could hear, and my mother-in-law immediately started shouting. Brittany, where's this month's $3,000 support? What I'm talking about, the $3,000 for this month hasn't been transferred yet. Mother, please calm down. Do you realize right now Justin is? I don't care if he's sick or whatever. You work at a good company. You must have plenty of savings. Hurry up and transfer it to me. My mother-in-law furiously shouted, eventually saying something unbelievable. Do you get it? You married Justin and became his wife, so when Justin can't pay because he's sick, you should pay me. If you don't, I'll make you the co-signer of the debt. At that moment, something inside me snapped. She always exposed her greed, never considering our situation. My patience with her had reached its limit. Doesn't she reflect on her words or actions even in this situation? If that's the case, I have no choice but to play my last card. I firmly told my mother-in-law over the phone, "Your son has passed away, so I can no longer provide support." My mother-in-law responded with a dumbfounded, "Ha." Justin's proposed last resort was to lie to my mother-in-law that my husband had died and see her reaction. If she showed even a hint of sadness, reflected on her past behavior, and sincerely apologized, then I would consider continuing the support. But if she showed no remorse and still demanded money, I was ready to completely sever ties. I thought even a mother obsessed with money would deeply reflect upon hearing about her son's death. However, the moment she heard it, my mother-in-law started laughing loudly. Ha ha ha. What's so funny? Because if Justin is dead, that means I'll get a share of the inheritance, right? I've been researching it, you know. I started looking into it as soon as I heard Justin got sick. You're entitled to 2/3 of Justin's estate, and the remaining 1/3 is mine. I was dumbfounded. Normally, if one hears their child is sick, they would first look for treatment or useful information. But she had been researching inheritance division. My anger reached its limit, and I was beyond appalled. My husband seemed to feel the same way, and we exchanged glances before he slowly nodded. It was a sign to continue with the plan. Once again, I spoke firmly to my mother-in-law. "Mother, did you listen to what I said? Your son Justin has passed away." "I've heard you, so what? Aren't you sad your son has died before you?" "Oh, right. I was worried I wouldn't get the monthly support anymore. But well, if I'm getting the inheritance, that's fine. How can you, for now, just make sure you give me 1/3 of the inheritance, okay? If you try to run off with it all by yourself, I'll never forgive you." The call ended abruptly, and the dial tone echoed in my ears. Casually glancing at my husband, I saw his face turn red with anger, his body shaking. "Justin, calm down. Are you okay?" As I casually asked my husband, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I've decided I should cut ties with such a person. She will surely come here demanding money eventually, so let's wait until then." "Yeah, you're right, Justin. Are you really okay with this, cutting ties with your mother like this?" "Yeah, I am. After hearing what she said on the phone, I have no regrets. Someone who can say such things without batting an eye is not a parent." His eyes were filled with hatred, turning red. I felt the same way. A person who thinks only about money, even over her son's life, is not family. A few days later, as expected, my mother-in-law showed up at our house. I managed the situation for the time being and asked Justin to hide in the next room. Then, my mother-in-law approached me with a fierce look and pressed me aggressively. "Brittany, hand over Justin's inheritance right now." "Huh? That topic again? Don't you have anything else to say? Justin's dead, isn't he? What's the point of saying anything now? It's meaningless. You have the nerve to say that when you didn't even visit him in the hospital. Can you even call yourself his parent? You're so noisy. Just give me the inheritance right now. I'll call a lawyer if I have to." At that moment, I realized that talking to her was just a waste of time. Just then, my husband emerged from the next room. Seeing him, my mother-in-law let out a loud gasp as if she'd seen a ghost. "Justin, why, you're supposed to be dead." "Mom, long time no see. Sorry, but the story about me being dead was a lie." "A lie, you say? why would you say such a disrespectful thing? To expose your true nature and confirm it for myself. I wondered how you would manage the monthly financial support if I, your son, were dead. But unfortunately, you turned out to be the worst kind of person, only thinking about money. This situation made that very clear. That's Justin, calling your own parents the worst kind of person. Quiet? I'm cutting ties with a toxic parent like you. As my husband shouted, Sandra stood there open-mouthed, stunned. She hadn't yet come to terms with the reality of being disowned by her own son. Wait, what do you mean, Justin? Well, I just said, I'm cutting ties. I can't consider someone like you my mother. Don't say that. So, what about the financial support? Why would I support you? You need to find a way to pay off your own debt. We've decided to move away. Wait, without the support, I won't be able to live. Tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law reached out to my husband. He forcefully brushed her hand away, looked at her coldly, and said, I don't care about your life. You never once apologized for all the trouble you caused us, did you? Knowing your true nature now, I feel relieved. Don't ever show your face to us again. That's cruel. Wait, Justin, are you really going to abandon your mother? Ignoring her words, my husband grabbed her arm and dragged her to the front door. Then he threw her bag and shoes outside and kicked her out of the house. She made a scene outside, but apparently unable to bear the stares of onlookers, she left after a while. Persistent calls and emails came, but we ignored them all. We blocked her number and quickly finished moving. The co-signing of the debt turned out to be something Sandra had fabricated, so the guarantee contract was void, and Justin no longer had any responsibility as a guarantor. Having lost all support from us, my mother-in-law was apparently living a miserable life. It was no surprise since she had used almost all the money we sent for gambling. The remaining debt was substantial, and she spent her days being chased by debt collectors. Working from morning till night, she couldn't gamble anymore. It's unlikely that she will pay off all her debt anytime soon. From now on, she will have to work until her body can no longer move. It's all her own doing. Meanwhile, we are living fulfilling days in our new home. Justin's condition stabilized, and he was able to return to work after recovering. And now there's a new life growing inside me. Next year, our family will grow by one, and we will start a new life. In the future, we want to spend peaceful and happy days as a family of 3. About the $3 million, I've made a decision to divide it between my mom and me. This decision came shortly after my father's funeral. Jack, after perusing the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, finally, I can quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man. Doddering old man? Are you talking about my dad? I inadvertently blurted out. Disregarding my confusion, Jack and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to buy a new car and go shopping. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, I could no longer contain my emotions. I was on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they'd insulted my father. I didn't want to live with Jack and my mother-in-law anymore. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please. I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife working alongside my husband. My parents were doctors who ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Although my parents were disappointed I didn't become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother unexpectedly died in an accident, leaving me and my father devastated. During those difficult times, Jack, then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Jack proposed. Jack was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry. Despite earning significantly more, I believed we could overcome any difficulty and be a happy couple. My father was overjoyed when I told him about our engagement. I've heard how Jack supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her, he said. Facing my father, Jack stood straight and promised, I will make her happy. Standing next to Jack, I was enveloped in feelings of happiness. The following week, we went to Jack's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, with flashy makeup and divorced from Jack's father, evaluated me rudely. Marriage, huh? You're Jack's choice, are you? Isn't she a bit plain for your choice? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you? Jack quickly retorted. Mom, you know M Pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice. I expected Jack to praise my character, but instead he emphasized the financial advantages. Hearing this, his mother's expression changed to one of satisfaction. Oh, Jack, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly. Thank you. After gaining approval for our marriage from Jack's mother, Jack was overjoyed. However, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease. Despite things going smoothly, and our decision to get married, when we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. I told Jack, Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together. Jack smiled happily, and thus our married life began. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Jack, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to throw it away. While I wanted to diligently share household responsibilities, Jack's careless attitude increased my dissatisfaction. In the first year of marriage, I took on all the household responsibilities despite some complaints, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. But with the exhaustion from work and struggling to keep up with chores, I reached my limit in our second year. Deciding to have a serious talk with Jack about sharing household duties, I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction. To my dismay, Jack responded without gratitude or reflection, saying, I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it. Dismissed just like that, Jack hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the only problem. After marrying Jack, I discovered his mother also had some peculiar ideas. Jack wasn't very interested in seasonal events, so I decided to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite choosing a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me sounding displeased. She criticized the scarf, saying it wasn't from a famous brand and was absurd to send such a no-name item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting she wanted items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned, I reported this to Jack when he returned home. But instead of empathizing, he said, What? It's just do as she said. Jack didn't take my side, and from then on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 5th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Jack, without any complaints, would always smile and give money to his mother. Even though I had a job, Jack's income was limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation led me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Jack cherished his mother, and she was an important person to me, having supported me during tough times. She's the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer, and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. my father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I questioned, "Dad, why even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Jack I would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition, but please do your best," was the only thing Jack said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. I was so preoccupied with my father's care that I had no time to spare for Jack. If I had time to worry about Jack, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked me, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Jack going?" Caught off guard, I found myself thinking about Jack's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and spoke to me, "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry. You won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears and wept, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly. Engulfed in immense sorrow, I started arranging the funeral. Jack, however, showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Jack. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Jack and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I spread out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk. Reading through them, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a short while. When I awoke, I heard the cheerful voices of Jack and his mother from afar. "Huh, Jack and mother too. When did you come?" As I spoke, Jack approached me with a beaming smile, saying, "Yes, Kelly, well done." "Huh, what?" Confused by his sudden excitement. I noticed the documents in Jack's hand. They were the inheritance papers I had received from the lawyer. "Wait, don't just read those without asking." Shocked and angry at Jack for looking through the documents without permission, I raised my voice at him. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law suddenly said that. Then Jack turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $3 million, I've decided that it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Jack, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man. Doddering old man, are you talking about my dad? I accidentally said it out loud. Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible. Ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events, Jack and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. While holding back my anger, I replied with a forced smile, "Sure, use the money you and my mother-in-law, please, as you wish." Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, said cheerfully, "That's the spirit, Kelly. quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard. I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. Afterward, Jack and my mother-in-law began living as if they had lost their minds, consuming money lavishly. Jack quickly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house constantly. They would leave in the morning, returning with luxury brand items they had splurged on. The 3-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected. Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us, the sophisticated ones. They had conversations as if they had become wealthy celebrities while dumping all the housework on me as if I were a maid. Jack seemed to think my father's inheritance would come through immediately. He carelessly withdrew money from our joint account, and my savings of $100,000 dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Jack just laughed it off. Huh, what are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal. I warned him. I've already stopped it. But Jack completely ignored me. Then, a month later, Jack and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Hawaii. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door, wondering what was happening. I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Jack and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want? I asked calmly and coldly. Red with anger, Jack yelled. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Seeing Jack and my mother-in-law confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom. Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course, it won't open. What? Why? Let's talk over this calmly at the nearby cafe. Please go ahead. I'll join you shortly, I suggested. Jack and his mother, after shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realized it was futile and soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving there, I saw Jack and his mother, who had arrived earlier, waiting in a state of fury. Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly told Jack and his mother. Facing a visibly angry Jack, I presented a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother was equally shocked and bewildered. Kelly, why has it come to this? I spoke quietly to the two who were panicking and flustered. By the way you've been spending lavishly every day, are you sure your finances are okay? What money? Of course, it's fine, Jack retorted vehemently, spitting as he spoke. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Here it is. Saying this, Jack took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. At that moment, his expression changed abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day. Hearing Jack's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you. So I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division. What? What do you mean? Jack's face turned to anger for a moment. But then he smirked, as if remembering something. Fine, I'll divorce you then. Transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? Well, you might be misunderstanding something. I replied, why didn't you know? The inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division. There was a moment of silence between us. Then Jack and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was just astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. No, that can't be true. That's impossible. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said mockingly. Jack started frantically searching on his smartphone. It says here, property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses. What? Seriously? His mother too looked at the screen in shock. Then Jack approached me, pleading desperately, Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me? Faced with Jack's whining, I spoke to him clearly and firmly. What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to. Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never seen before, Jack and his mother shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly. Leaving the two of them dejected, I walked out of the cafe. Later on, Jack and I were able to go through the divorce proceedings without any issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to get Jack and his mother out of my house. Jack, having already squandered the money from the property division, found himself penniless. Furthermore, he was overwhelmed with bills from the overseas trip and other expenses he had paid for with his credit card, quickly sinking into debt. Jack and his mother had to take on even more debt to make these payments, and they now live in a rundown apartment, working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. The stark contrast to their former lavish lifestyle has been a huge shock for them. On the other hand, I sold the condo I used to share with Jack. I then moved into the apartment that used to belong to my father. I continue to work as before, but with the inheritance I received from my father, I am living a comfortable life financially. With gratitude to my late father in my heart, I want to start anew and cherish my life ahead. I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully.